Welcome back, and this is part 2 of our tutorial about problem solving, going from a word problem to actually coding in Visual Studio. What we're going to do now is take the algorithmic code that we figured out in the last presentation and move to Visual Studio and actually create a new project and create our application and test it out. First thing we're going to do after starting Visual C++ 2010 Express, you can use one of the other Visual Studio products, but I'm just going to use this one because it's the simplest for our purposes. I'm going to create a new project by clicking the New Project link on our Start page. I want to leave the Visual C++ selection that comes up initially, and then I want to select a Win32 console app. Okay, notice there's some others, but for our purposes, there's a CLR console, there's an empty project, and so forth. But we're going to go ahead and use the Windows 32 console application. I'm going to select a place on my computer system that I can remember and make this work as far as remembering where I store things. Notice that what I've currently got here is the D projects, SGD 151, and then some other information. I'm going to go ahead and change this a little bit. I'm going to leave the projects SGD 151, and then I'm just going to call this PS, problem solving. Okay, and that's going to be my directory where it stores this project that I'm creating. I'm also going to give it a name of store inventory, and that's going to be my project name and also a solution name. Now I'm going to go ahead now and just click OK, and it's going to come up and ask me if I've selected the right things. In this case, it's saying these are the current project settings, console application. Yes, that's exactly what I wanted, so that's fine. When this screen opens up, make sure that you deselect the precompiled header. We don't need to use that for our purposes, so we'll take that out, and it just simplifies getting things to run. And then, of course, just simply click Finish. I'm going to ignore this application that it made initially for me because I'm going to actually change this a little bit because we don't need to have an application that returns anything. What I am going to do is change my includes, the first include, because we are going to be operating with both our command window and the keyboard inputs. I'm going to go ahead and include. And notice as soon as I put that bracket in there, I get a list of potential items to include in my file. Includes are nothing more than having the ability to bring in external or system level inputs and functionality. In this case, the IOStream is simply going to give us the capability to interact with the keyboard and the computer screen. Like I said, I'm going to get rid of the pre-built tmain, and I'm going to create a new one. And notice I'm going to type void main and then empty parentheses. What that's saying is I'm going to create a main function that returns nothing. So, and then as with all C and C++ functions, we need to control the structure of that by putting in a curly brace, a left curly brace, and I'm going to give myself a couple of spaces, and then a right curly brace. And this defines the area in my code in this text file that is our C++ file, and it's going to limit or tell me exactly where in the file this function lives. Okay, going back to our code, one thing that we found we needed was going to be some input variables. So I'm going to go ahead and put a comment here. Notice I put / variables. / is for a single line of comment. Comments are very useful, especially when you get to more complex applications where you might want to remind yourself or give information to somebody else about the code you've just written. So there I'm going to put in our input code. And again, notice the formatting I'm using. This is standard, normal text formatting within my C++ code. It helps you by keeping this formatting like this. It helps you follow the code, and it keeps things nice and orderly. As you'll find out, anybody that's programmed in C or C++ likes to keep things very neat, very orderly in their code. And of course, those are our input variables. So I'm just going to make a little note there. Input. And then I'm going to put another comment here, variables, output. And for our output, as we saw, we need in stock equals 0. So this is our, and always remember you've got to give it a data type, and I forgot to do that there, so that's why I got the red squiggly. As soon as I correct that, it goes away. Now we need to interact with user. So now this is the part of the code that we figured out where we needed to use a lot of CINs and COUTs. For instance, we need to COUT to tell our user that we need the beginning stock number. And that's simply just like that. Now notice I'm getting, as soon as I do the COUT, CIN, I'm getting this identifier as being undefined, even though that should be in IOStream. There is a issue that I've researched, and I'm not sure why they have never fixed this, but in 2010, you need to also add using namespace standard. Okay, and as soon as I do that, notice that my red squigglies, my error indicator on COUT, CIN went away. Okay, so I'm going to continue to put in my code that we had figured out and was in the presentation. So I've got a couple of chunks of code to put into this. Once we've got all our input from our user, we have everything we need to actually make things happen. So I'm going to just put a little note here, calculate end of month total. Okay, and we do that by calculating in stock is going to equal our beginning stock plus how much we purchased minus how much we sold. Standard operating things for a business, right? And then finally, we need to print output for user. And to do that, we simply do a cout and ending stock. And again, notice I have to put a space there because cout will, if anything, is precise. It will just put exactly what you want out to the screen, and nothing more, nothing less. So I have to take care of spaces, punctuation, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to put out our in stock variable, and then follow that up with an end L. And again, that's end L, not end one. We had some people making a few mistakes at last class doing the end one, and it's end L as in end line. Okay, so that's all the code we should need. So I'm going to do a Control S, save that. Now I'm going to do a Control F5. And it's telling me the project is out of date. What that's really saying is the last compiled version, or if there's no compiled version of this application, is either not present or out of date. In other words, the file's been edited since it was last run. So we have to make sure that we build our application. So I'm going to tell it, click on the yes. And once the application window opens up, I'm going to enter some numbers just to test it out. So let's say we started off with 100, bought 50, and sold 75, which should mean our end of month stock should be 75. And there it is. Once I get to the press any key to continue, I can simply hit return and it closes the application. And that's all there is to running your application. And that concludes our tutorial on problem solving with the IPO approach to problem solving and determining your algorithm, and using Visual Studio to actually implement the C++ code.